Resiliency is not a word that tribes basically use. Obviously, the native tribes have been resilient. That's why they're still around. We're trying to fit something that we do as a people into a box to communicate your threats to your communities. It's passing on culture and stories, sharing, teaching our young ones how we learned from our parents and grandparents on how to survive.
We call Chignik Bay is Chignik. If you're up the lagoon, they'll say down the bay. Or at the lakes, they say go down the bay. From down here, it's up the lagoon, up the lakes. I always tell anybody, friends that come up here, they hey, we're going to make a trip up there. We always want to see it. I say, come down to Chignik. See real rural Alaska.
When they say bear in the village, you got to go. There it is right there. He's right there. That's a cub.
Those values you get out of these smaller towns like this, a lot of self-reliance and the subsistence lifestyle where you go out and you get your own food.
And you want to wait till the head gets up.
There's a difference in looking at nature and looking at the world when you live in this kind of a setting.
I like fish. I like octopus. Octopus. I like salmon. Salmon. Yeah, and that's it.
And this is Robert, and he's our mayor.
I like your van.
This was a very vibrant place, and we had like 500 cannery workers and stuff like that.
Yeah, this was one of the richest fisheries in the state at one point. Usually by this time of year, there's smokehouses going and people starting to put away their subsistence fish for the year. And now we wait.
Since fishing went poor, people are selling out and people are moving out. I mean, to me, there's a chain reaction.
The first of many fishery disasters was 2018. We had realized we knew very little about what our community needs were. We started looking a little closer at our impacts of the changing climate, but also how to adapt and mitigate.
Oh, it's definitely accelerated. Within the last 5 years, this has happened. When the lagoon was frozen over during the majority of the winter, there was ice cakes this thick here that basically stayed here all winter. Ice pack is not solid anymore. We're lucky to have it around for a week, and it drifts out, and then the waves come and just starts eating away at the bank.
So the nature of my work is helping advance our community's needs, whether it be infrastructure or research. We try to provide them with the correct information to help them grow.
You know, part of our mission is providing products to communities so that they can then use those to apply for other funding.
So I think this project is a great example of what we hope to achieve with the Alaska Coastal Cooperative.
This used to fill in with ice in the wintertime.
We're trying to enhance communication with communities, so their local priorities are driven to the top. We're trying to advance applied science, so that means doing science that makes a difference in the community to move their adaptation strategies forward.
So if you want to stand next to
It's on the other side of that road.
Amazing.
I'm not absolutely sure, but I believe that it's Federal Water Project 14. And it was built in the 1920s to supply water for the canneries. With the raising of the dam of 8 feet, the amount of fuel that would be displaced is really significant. That's part of the picture. A power source that is very economical and something we can do to improve our own environment in the community.
So right now we're collecting a lot of different data. We'll get a really good sense of how this watershed will behave. You know, one of the things that we're seeing elsewhere in the States and the Arctic in general is we have glaciers up in the alpine areas that are receding. There's more water in the system, in the watershed, that's able to mobilize these sediments. There's more rock fall that's happening, so there's just more sediments to be moved, which is fine if there's no infrastructure, but
yeah.
This bridge is of the utmost importance to the community. It's the single point of access up to the hill. There's the town dump and the water tower, but more importantly, it's a tsunami evacuation route. So it's really as simple as just taking a bunch of pictures, capturing the same piece of ground. If you get it from different angles, you could do some pretty fancy math with some software and recreate the surface in a three-dimensional environment. And if we do that from year to year, we can look at the change. So in this case, the community has told us that there's a lot of sediments coming down. If it turns out that there's too much sediment compromising the bridge, then it's going to inform engineering groups on how to better build a bridge that will last and just build up the local resiliency.
So after some years of really listening to the folks on the ground there of what their priorities are, it was clear that the main gist of it is around fish, where fish live, where they go, what they're doing. And so one of the things that we're able to do is map fish habitat.
Hey, fellas, here's one of our skippers here.
Over there you may not get the data that you want because it's so grassy.
Bathymetry is the topography underneath the water line. So just like we have elevation data for everything above the water line, we're doing it under the water. I mean, it's happening right there. They could see that our trail is new contours that are starting to show up from your boat trail. That's the beauty of it, is that it is the same as any other fish finder technology. So the lift is pretty easy for getting people to go out and collect this data.
And so I've got a pretty good background in electronics, and so, well, I grew up as a fisherman too, so this kind of thing was just second nature to me. So, yeah. Pretty cool. It's interesting stuff for sure.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about the life cycle of the Chignik salmon. You know, once they escape into the river system, they, spawn. Those eggs will hatch, and they'll spend 1 year in the freshwater or 2 before, spilling out into the Gulf of Alaska. There you're looking at 2 to 3 years, and then they start their journey back into the Chignik area. It's a management goal to keep that life cycle healthy.
Throughout my life, I've always been drawn to fish and understanding why they're in the places they are, why they're eating the things that they are, who eats them, who catches them, who cares about them, what problems do they face.
The University of Washington has been running the Alaska Salmon Program since the 50s or 60s. It gives us a really clear picture of how the whole watershed and ecosystem has changed.
We got one. At least one.
The research I'm doing is looking through this long-term data set to look for climate change signatures in things like zooplankton community structure and fish species composition.
That looks like a sockeye. It's a little hard. Yeah, it's a sockeye.
Pretty fat. 57.
And it is our goal to find out why the run has been doing poorly recently. But, what we're seeing up here is there's still tons of habitat. The ecosystem conditions with climate change are, if anything, going to start improving, at least on the short-term scale. We're getting warmer water. There's more food for the juvenile fish in the freshwater. Habitat connectivity is great. It's a really resilient population. So I am hopeful that the big runs of Chignik will come back, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the fishery is managed and exploited.
everyone has their own kind of individual goals with this project. But I think generally, you know, they're pretty simple. It's like the people want to be able to live there. They want their children to be able to live there. They want to have a hope for the future that they're going to be able to make money, build their houses, catch fish. You know, it's pretty simple stuff.
I accept and understand that it'll never be the way it was when I grew up, but that's just the way things go. I'm going to do everything in my power to make it as enjoyable for whoever wants to grow up there.
He's my nephew.
Yeah.
From and it's his first year coming over here.
Oh, okay.
So he's pretty fresh.
What made you decide to take up the invite to come, or what were you?
To fish, I guess.